yes, it is that time of the year. It's that time of the year where the NHS is absolutely melting down, which is something that happens literally every single year, and why somebody like Rory can write this excellent article from, I think it was republished earlier this year in March, but it was originally published back in July 26th, 2021, and it will remain relevant forever, for as long as the NHS is still around, where he just labelled it, despite its virtues, it's time to let the NHS die, because the NHS is, as far as I'm concerned, not fit for purpose, especially because of the fact that, just reasonably speaking, every single Christmas, every single wintertime, we get nothing but doom and gloom, crisis this, crisis that. It's going to be massively disruptive. The NHS won't be able to work properly. Here's what you should do to mitigate for the fact that the NHS isn't going to work properly every single year.
Also, I'm so sick of my life being dictated by the needs of the NHS.
Oh, it
you
is.
Get this?
Yeah, no, we've got the cult of the NHS. It's almost like kind of this metaphysical figure of worship.
That's 100% true, but the deeper thing that I hate is like any policy proposal has to be put through the lens of, will this cost the NHS more money? Like the sugar tax we have in this country, or the regulations of whatever or whatever else. It's always about, yeah, but what about the NHS?
Yeah, well, the secret is that everything is designed to cost the NHS more money so that then they can fund the NHS more, because if it costs the NHS more money, then the NHS can say we're still underfunded.
Well, the best thing I do like is the debate about tobacco, though, because if you increase tobacco usage, it means it doesn't cost the NHS more money later in life.
That's a good point. We need to start allowing smoking indoors again, boys. Let's get to it. We need to save the NHS. Get smoking.
I don't endorse that, but it's just a funny debate politicians have sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, reasonably speaking, the NHS as a service is not set up to just be the NHS and something that you can worship as some metaphysical deity. The NHS, like all other things in life, should be set up to benefit people, real human beings. And I don't know when the last time that you went to an NHS hospital or anything was. Last time I went was an absolute S show. Last time I went, it was like 4-5 hours waiting in the A&E emergency room on a Saturday night, and I know that Saturday nights are going to be more busy than usual, but people were just sat around suffering while staff, nurses, people just doing the administration were just sat around on the phones, not doing anything, just waiting for it to be their turn to do something, even though there was plenty that they could already be doing. It's just not fit for purpose, as far as I can tell, and it's even more so now that the nurses' strikes have been going on, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. But just to point out, as I've mentioned, every single year we get something about the NHS being destroyed. This is from 2018, and even in this
I actually thought it was from today.
It reads like something from today, but this headline, NHS crisis, is already worse than last year, and that's from 2018, so how bad was 2017? I don't know, but 2018 was worse.
We've got 1 year to save the NHS.
Yeah, 1 year to save the NHS in perpetuity, and then the next article I got along, another Daily Mail one, 2019, 19th of December 2019, NHS winter crisis. We always have these winter crises because people are in homes that struggle to heat sometimes, people are in the cold, people are suffering more from seasonal illnesses. There's plenty of stuff that goes on, and the NHS just isn't built. It's not built to sustain it. It's not built to be able to handle these sorts of things. I don't need to go over 2020 and 2021 and the absolute fiasco that was the NHS.
Really? Was it in crisis that year?
I feel like there was some kind of prolonged crisis, pandemic maybe, that was going on. I know that some people got brain rot and decided to start standing on their rooftops banging pots and pans, but I assume that was just completely unrelated. Yeah, it's just absolute nonsense. Yeah, you're just absolutely right that our entire lives are basically structured around the NHS in the UK.
I tell you, man, like watch Question Time, like watch an episode of that, and at some point someone will say, "Yes, but what about the NHS in relation to something completely unrelated?" I don't know, legalizing bungee jumping to certain heights or some crap minor
But how
thing.
will this affect the NHS?
Every time.
Well, it might save them money if the bungees fail.
Oh, well, it's a good thing.
Yeah, there you go. Sorted. I mean, some of the people in the UK parliamentary system would probably promote some absolutely ridiculous things if it was thought it could save the NHS money, such as in the same way that Canada's public health system is encouraging just kill yourself as a method of saving the health system money over there. And I don't think, personally, if anything like that got introduced over here, I don't think our politicians could resist taking the same route that Canada has.
No, I don't think they would.
Is it out of the realm of possibility? Can you imagine Rishi Sunak smiling with his android robotic smile directly into the camera, directly into your soul, and just saying, "This year for the NHS, kill yourself.
Invest in rope." It's just like,
I can see
Rishi.
that. I can see that happening. But one of the big things that's been going on is the strikes that have been going on across all these different industries, where we've got the nurses striking, we've got rail staff striking, civil servants striking. Civil servants striking, surely a good thing. The country probably runs better when they are. Bus drivers striking, postal workers. Everybody is striking. Everybody is striking because everybody needs more money, because the cost of everything is going up due to COVID and terrible fiscal policies that were promoted during those. There were no words that the maternity services and A&E patients were among those who won't be going on strike, because it would be far too catastrophic for them to go on strike. But there's been a lot of debate about this. I missed seeing the entire thing, but I know Peter Hitchens showed up on, was it Question Time recently, alongside Jacob Rees-Mogg, and got into an argument with one of the people from the nurses union talking about the strikes, where Peter Hitchens said they shouldn't strike. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't get a pay rise. They're more than deserving of a pay rise. Because in theory, I'm not against the idea of strikes. In fact, I think that there's an easy solution for these strikes, because if nurses and doctors are very important, generally.
Well, do you want that staff? If so, it costs this much. I'm not willing to pay that when you don't get it.
Yeah, you don't get it. I'm not
It's like buying biscuits. It's not.
I'm not gonna. I think I understand why a lot of people are against strikes and unions, because they can turn into a massive racket where they're just led by these cults of personalities, these people who just want to push it as far as possible for their own gain, publicity. But in theory, the strikes are not something I disavow. Reasonably speaking, if these people are outside of the realm where they're getting paid enough to survive, especially over winter with the cost of living and everything, with inflation being what it is, I'm not entirely against it, because it's the government's fault, reasonably speaking, because the government could do some things with the NHS to make it so they can afford to raise the pay of these people. Because we may have covered it before. Callum, I don't know if this is something you might be familiar with. We might have covered it before, but the NHS wastes a lot of money.
Does it?
I know. This might blow your mind.
Is there some kind of ideology they're wasting money on?
There actually might be. And even beyond the ideology, there's a lot of stuff that just goes on where the NHS is just seemingly purposefully inefficient. But one of the reasons that someone like Peter Hitchens would say that the nurses should get paid more but shouldn't go on strike is obviously because it can be massively disruptive and massively painful to people who need services at the NHS hospitals and who can't get them. People could die. But they say, sick babies as well as cancer and dialysis patients will be among those protected from the action. So there are certain elements of this that where it won't be going, and we've already had plenty of these strikes, but they will be going on into January as well. The nurses are calling for a rise in pay of 5% above inflation, as well as better working conditions amid a huge shortfall in nursing staff across the country. And this is a squeeze that we're all feeling right now. The inflation that's been going on, people's heating bills going up.
They want a pay rise 5% above inflation.
Yeah.
I just looked it up just to make sure I was right. But since April 2020, so before all the lockdowns and the inflating of the currency supply, we've now had 22.3% inflation.
Is that in real terms or in what is it, the price index?
I'm using RPI just because it's an inflation calculator. But then if they want 5% above that, then yikes.
That's a big pay rise, but the government's got no one to blame for the inflation but itself.
No,
really.
The 22.3% is absolutely the government's fault.
Okay, government, you want inflation, you also want an NHS, you're going to have to make some sacrifices on your woke agenda. That's what you got to do. I know you guys like to pretend to be all performatively anti-woke, but you constantly say that you're going to strip the NHS of all of these woke non-jobs, and you don't do it. But, so, like I mentioned, there's more strikes to come from the...
I'll fire 1 million nurses before I let the woke agenda die.
Yep, that's right. We need to protect our poor Browns. But the more strikes are coming on the 18th and 19th of January with the nurses. It's going to be across the whole country, and I looked into it, and there's around 100,000 nurses are planning to strike, and I looked into it, and current numbers of nurses and equivalent are around, I think, 320,000 across the country. So it's around 1/3 of the nurse staff striking, which is going to cause trouble. It will cause trouble. I've not been to the NHS or the hospital recently, but if you out there watching this have been to the hospital recently and noticed some problems with the service or anything going wrong, leave it in the comments. I'd be interested in hearing these stories, because it's nice to hear it's not nice, but it's important to hear the first-hand experiences of this sort of stuff. But beyond the nurses' strikes, there have been some amusing consequences of some of the other strikes that have been going on, such as the strikes been going on at the border force with the airports, which have supposedly been running better than usual because the army decided to jump in and suddenly everything went much smoother, where passengers praised the army personnel standing in the UK airports, with some saying it's the quickest they've gone through the gates in years. I'm getting a flight in a week or two. I'm kind of hoping the strikes are still on. That would be nice. That would be nice. I just want to get in and out. Nobody wants to spend 5 hours at the airport going through baggage handling and taking off your shoes. We just want to get onto the plane. So all we need. So if the army, go back up, Michael.
I do love this.
If this friendly gentleman, if this absolute Chad right here, who even has a classic British moustache.
I'm imagining his accent's like Bronson for some reason.
I can see it as well.
Have you got a bum, little boy? No. Well, then on your way.
That's right.
Enjoy Paris.
We need Tom Hardy for a biopic of this man 20 years from now. That's right. But yeah, if this gentleman and other men like him can help me get through the airport as quickly as possible, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And doesn't it just tell you the absolute rubbish staff that a lot of these places have, that they all strike and things get better?
That is hilarious. That is a massive backfire in your striking tactic.
It really is, where the airports are probably just sort of like, how much to borrow some of these soldiers? What's the rent on them? But the travellers were warned to brace themselves for delays amid fears of the walkout of 1,000 staff working in passport booths could lead to long queues, people being held on planes, and late departures. But the military personnel trained to check passports appeared to have prevented them. So all those worries gone. So once again, with the nurses and stuff like that, yeah, you've got specialised skills that you need to be able to do so that you can do your job. With people like this...
Is he a Rogan?
Yeah. That's the one question you get right now. They give you a look up and down. They give you the old ocular pat down.
You're to additional security, son.
I wonder what the qualifiers for those would be. Maybe we shouldn't guess.
I love the idea that the guy who, Bronson, the character from the movie, just being security, like it's just him, no one else.
It's just him, no one else. They don't need anybody else. The man's mental.
Shut your mouth! Sorry.
All right, Callum. I'm sorry.
You've seen Bronson, right?
I actually haven't.
Although
when I was in university living in Salford, I used to walk past the cafe most days that he owns that's in Salford, and it's just, the sign's great. It's just a big cartoon picture of his face, like...
That's a lunatic.
He is, but he seems very entertaining. But yeah, so a co-bureau chief for international news agency Reuters from Spain wrote on Twitter shortly before 10 a.m, just flown into Gatwick from Madrid. Military manning border, absolutely no queues, quicker than usual, and service from a naval rating with a beaming smile. That just sounds nice. That, once again, I really hope these gents are at the airport when I get a flight soon, because that just sounds much nicer. But back onto the NHS. So some of the negotiations haven't been going great between the government and the union chiefs trying to negotiate for more pay. So it seems that the government has offered them a annual pay rise of £1,400, and that's the pay offer for 2022 to 23 that they've made for the staff, except for doctors and dentists, which the unions aren't happy with, because that's not in line with what they're asking for, that's not in line with inflation. I think that from figures that I've seen, the offers that they've been given are closer to about, it's still basically a real terms pay decrease for them. It's not going in line with inflation, it's still, 2.3% below what they would need for it to even match inflation. So they're still worse off than they were before. And the health union said that the hardening of Rishi Sunak and Steve Barclay's positions this week... they were talking about it, and they said the Prime Minister said it was too late in the financial year to revisit the £1,400 award that provoked such anger, while Barclay, the Health Secretary, who has refused to negotiate over pay, infuriated ambulance workers by claiming their stoppage this week could cost lives. That's true. It could, but also... it's also kind of your fault if it's your fault that they're striking in the first place. There's a lot of blame to be going around here. And from one union official, they said, next time it'll be harder for the NHS to operate on strike days. We have to make it more difficult, because if we don't cause difficulty, what's the point? So this kind of brings up the ethics of the whole situation, because they are actively trying to make it more difficult for the NHS to do what they need to do to help people and save lives, potentially. What's that smirk for?
I've looked up a Bronson clip to show you later, and it's just funny.
Okay.
The account that uploaded the clip as well is called Cock and Balls 123, which just who picks that as their name? Sorry, completely derailing.
Staying on topic as usual. We're known for our great professionalism, but hey, it is just after Christmas. Most of us are still sobering up.
What's your YouTube channel? I want to subscribe. Oh no.
Cotton balls 1, 2, 3. I don't know why they turned into a Devonshire pirate.
Anyway.
Anyway, but yeah, what I wanted to talk about was the rather serious subject, Callum, before you rudely derailed me, of the ethics of this whole thing. The ethics of cock and balls 1, 2, 3.
I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. No, the ethics of these people, I understand that they need the pay, and I understand... The problem is, I kind of agree with the Peter Hitchens point of these people shouldn't strike because it's irresponsible, it's dangerous, it's endangering people's lives because people rely on them for the health services. But at the same time, I don't understand how else they would be able to negotiate the pay if they need it that much. Okay.
It's not funny. It's not funny, but I've lost it.
All right. Shall we just take a moment, take a deep breath? Okay. Oh, fucking hell. All right.
It's not funny. I'm laughing at the situation now.
You're making me laugh. Michael, do something. Michael, have we got some, like, spray for cats or something?
All right. It's calm. I'm calm. All right. Serious.
Okay, Michael's shrugging his shoulders.
People losing their jobs.
Sorry. God's sake. Oh, God. Podcast gone wild. All right. Okay, we're going to take a moment to de-stress. Everybody take a deep breath in.
All right, back to the strikes.
Back to the strikes. Now, the question I wanted to ask you, was Peter Hitchens' point that they shouldn't strike because it's irresponsible and could be dangerous, could endanger people's lives. I agree, but at the same time, how are these people, these nurses, going to get a pay rise without taking action like this? Can you think of anything like that? Because I do think it's a difficult question.
If they didn't work for the government, then they could actually negotiate, because they'd be like, well, my labour is worth this.
Yes.
You have money. Do you want to give me that money? No, then I won't work for you. Well, you? Okay, I will work for you. But
if there was some form of competitive industries being able to play off of one another.
Yeah, because they work for the state. I mean, bad luck. It's that simple.
The NHS just needs complete reforming from the ground up. And on that point, if we go to the next one, we can see even beyond the obvious woke agenda that the NHS has been pushing, there is just plenty of wasted money and wasted time and wasted bureaucracy. Oh, for God's sake, Callum, I thought we were past this. Oh my God, he got a snort out of him and all.
Yeah, what's wrong with me?
I've never seen him like this. Normally he's on his best behaviour.
We're on strike.
Callum's on strike, everybody. We're sick of this.
I gotta turn off the chat. I was reading the chat. The chat was funny.
All right, okay.
Sorry.
Calm down. On the woke agenda that the NHS is wasting money on, recent news came out from the Daily Mail yesterday. All right. Okay, we good? We good? Okay. Where it came out that the NHS bosses want interview panels to justify why they'd hired white people over candidates from ethnic minorities. So apparently this was happening at the Royal Free in North London. Interview panels had to write to chief executives explaining their decision, where even the staff having to do this. For God's sake, man.
I don't know what's wrong with me. It's not funny. I know.
So you've got into the loop. You've got into the cycle. It's happened to me before. I'll just carry on.
Oh God, I wish we pre-recorded this instead of going live.
Yeah. So instead of the even the frustrated staff apparently have been calling it a tick box exercise, which makes perfect sense. So the NHS was offering more than still offering more than £1 million worth of woke non-jobs in hospitals and trusts, even though the government has said that what they're going to be doing, I'm going to ignore that, even though the government has said that what they would be doing is trying to get rid of these, so they just don't. They don't have the political will to do it, or it gets money in their pockets or votes or something. I couldn't say exactly what.
They actually have to sit and explain why have you got a whitey.
Basically,
and then someone has to sit with a report with, well, I have reasons.
Yep. That's the only thing. Is it? Oh, it must be because white supremacy. Yeah. That's the only reason it could be. So it's been in place at the Royal Free NHS Foundation Trust since July 2018 for staff in senior positions, and even though I disagree with it, I could see from an affirmative action representation angle why there would be like, oh, we need you to explain why you haven't hired more black people to senior staff, in the same way that it's like, oh, we need more black people in adverts, even though they're massively overrepresented. But now it's also just expanded to any role within that particular trust.
You literally have a white person you've done wrong.
Yeah, basically, it's ridiculous. If a white candidate is chosen, the panel chairman must write a report explaining why they were more suitable for the role. And guess what? They don't have to do that if you hire a brownie. Hire a brownie that's just like straight away, but hire a whitey. Must be some ulterior motive.
So you remember all that talk about systemic racism from the NHS? I mean, like, I found it.
Oh yeah,
It's there.
I just find it hilarious, the idea that what are they expecting? They go into the hiring, the interview panel. They look around and they just like start knocking on the walls, and they find a secret panel. They open it up and there's just clan hoods. What are they expecting? What do they think? And the report also says that failure to send off these reports explaining why they hired Whitey, sees them named and shamed in the Trust's monthly workforce race equality progress report. Here's an idea for how to save some money. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. The workforce race equality progress report. Scrap it. I don't think anybody needs it. When I'm there, in a hospital bed, about to go under for an operation, I'm not thinking, bloody hell, but how did these guys score on the workforce race equality progress report? I don't know if I can. Halfway through my surgery, I'll just have to sit up and say, sorry, lads, I can't be worked on by white supremacists. No, thank you.
Can't make a lot of the jokes in my mind right now.
All right, okay, that's all right then. And then even beyond all of the wokery and all the nonsense that we've covered time and time and time again, there's even just stuff like this, which is just a case of obvious corrupt bureaucracy, where agencies are sucking the NHS dry, according to this headline, middlemen charging £500 million a year to provide locum nurses and doctors. One group of staff were even given a free trip to the Caribbean, which doesn't seem like the best use of monetary resources to me. So the recruitment firms, so these are the agencies, were boasting record profits. It came as the NHS faced shortfalls of 12,000 hospital doctors, and the NHS England spent £3 billion of its total £136 billion budget on agency staff. And a lot of that, it seems about 20 or so % of that £3 billion would have been going as agency fees to the recruiters themselves. We are in the wrong business, my friend. Whenever we look into anything like this, I just think how much richer I could be sitting on a beach in the Caribbean, sipping on a martini, if I was just going with this whole agenda. It's such a good moneymaker.
I don't think you even have to be in country to do that. Like, you could be sat on a beach and just adding WhatsApp chats, like
there
connecting people.
Like, literally, you just need some kind of internet infrastructure, and you can be anywhere in the world as long as... I mean, Elon Musk's... What is it? Space Link or whatever it's called? So you can get...
Actually, I know a guy in Afghanistan who literally does that.
There you go.
Because he gets paid by Americans, like he's wintered.
I mean, I don't know why you would rather spend the time in Afghanistan rather than Caribbean.
But he's Afghan, so...
Oh, okay. I mean, you took a holiday there, so...
Well, sunny.
I suppose so. Worked on your tan.
Yeah, there you are.
You got some cultural enrichment. There you go. And one director alone from these firms pocketed more than £500,000 for it. And the Mail did an audit examining the accounts of 10 leading agencies, and it said they keep around 20% of the sum they charge to the health service after covering the wages of the locum staff. That equated last year to £600 million that could have been used for training. And they've got some examples of the overpriced agency fees in this article. So a job offered by ID Medical offered £40 an hour for a radiologist, a per annum salary, of £83,000. But a normal NHS radiology job advertised in Stevenage, Hertfordshire, offered a salary of between £33,000 to £40,000. So that's a massive inflation right there. A GP role in East London with national locums offered £950 for an on-call shift that would equate to about £247,000 a year. An NHS GP usually earns between about £65,000 and £98,000 per year. So they're paying these agencies massively inflated amounts of money, which is mainly 20% or so going to the heads of these agencies and the managers. And also screwing over, it seems, a lot of the nurses who just want a bit more pay while they're spending millions and millions of pounds. I mean, you tried to look into it. Didn't you do the Freedom of Information request just to see how much the government is... Was it on the government in general or the NHS was spending
I wrote
on
to the Treasury
equality?
saying, how much do you spend on individuals who have diversity and inclusion in their titles? And they just wrote back saying, no, we're not releasing that.
It's probably because it's an eye-watering amount of money.
Yeah, so I wrote for an internal review, and then it got back today, this morning, just before we started, where they went, no.
There you go.
Thanks.
Yeah, we were trying to do our journalistic duty, but we just got told no.
Yeah,
Trying to be journalists, government says no. So yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. We did get some insider info that I'm not going to attribute to anyone, saying that the NHS, from a financial advisor for the NHS, saying that they basically are never allowed to stop complaining about underfunding for the NHS, because then departments, if they stop doing that, departments will actually stop getting as much funding as they do. They might get something more reasonable for what they should be paying, which might mean that they have to cut, but then all of that extra funding tends to just go straight to the management anyway. So it's just a racket. It's just a racket. And this is nothing that we haven't covered before. Like, we've covered it before in segments like this next one, where the woke NHS tax, where I think it was you and Leo were talking about that blog, Dear White People of the UK. Someone got paid to do that.
Yeah, number 5, be uncomfortable.
Aishneen Benjamin, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Lead at Nursing and Midwifery Council. There you go. If you want to...
Tagline, for white people.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, once again, my quick fix solution to the nurses' strike, if we want to be able to pay these nurses what they're worth, what they should be paid, the money that will keep them working their jobs without striking, quick fix solution, fire these people, do away with equality, diversity and inclusion in all of these departments, and just get on with helping people, for the love of God. Thanks for watching that segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters. I hope you're having a very Merry Christmas right now. If you enjoyed that and want more, you can become a member over at our website for as little as £5 per month, and that means you can access all of our premium content, including this recent contemplations that Josh and Connor did, talking about whether we are a civilization of drug addicts due to medication. So that'll be very interesting. Check that out. And if you want to find more of what Josh is doing on the day-to-day, you can follow him over at Getter at Josh_firm. Thank you very much and take care.